Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Resilient Riches. We have Mor Assouline, an actual distant cousin of mine, and I was so honored to be related to him because he is the top sales coach in the country right now. He's crushing it on LinkedIn. He's crushing it around the world. He gets flown everywhere just to coach people on their sales processes, sales coaching. And what we're going to talk about today is how does somebody, one, get a career in sales? How does somebody who is in sales get to the next level? And how is somebody who wants to build resilient riches focus on revenue, focus on bringing in business to their firm? Mor, we're so honored to have you. We're so excited for this conversation. Thanks for coming on. And I know you're in Florida, and it's nice to pay less taxes, but we are in New York City, so we're happy here too.
You're in New York City. You're in New York City.
I agree for most of the time, but not for the business culture. Mor, give us your origin story. Tell people your background, and I got a lot of questions for you.
Yeah, for sure. Background: born in Israel, family immigrated to the U.S. during the Gulf War. We lived in L.A. from Israel to L.A. 3 years in, earthquake, Northridge earthquake. My mom didn't like it. Let's move to Miami. We moved to Miami. We got hurricanes, but at least you can predict them. And then went to high school in Hebrew Academy. Grew up there. Went to FIU local college. Wanted to do copywriting, and then I got a job. I graduated at 22, a sales job. And the first day on the job, first hour on the job, I actually quit. I was scared of sales. And so I had what I call sales PTSD for like 3 years. I wouldn't touch a phone. If I worked at a company and somebody called, even if it was a vendor, I wouldn't pick it up. I would give it to one of my colleagues. And then I joined Keller Williams, where they really tell you to cold call and door knock. And I met somebody else there that was as scared as like sales and cold calling and door knocking as me. And we said, hey, why don't we just, like, misery loves company, let's go cold call and door knock together. And so that's what we did. We ended up partnering up. And from 9 a.m. to like 11:30, 12 p.m. we'd go cold calling. And then from like 12:30, 1 o'clock to like 2, 3 o'clock, we'd go door knocking locally. And then to get, to help pay the bills, I got a part-time job at Allstate doing cold calling. I was like, what better way to like brush up on my sales skills for real estate than doing cold calling at Allstate? And that's what I did. So for a year straight, I was cold calling, door knocking, and cold calling. Probably made over 72,000 cold calls. I know because we used like an auto dialer that I was able to track things.
It sounds like you were over your PTSD by that point.
By that time, yeah. By the end of a year, usually they say a year of real estate is the hardest to crack. And it was like I had some rentals. I had a lot of I did have a lot of fear in, like, if an opportunity came my way, I was very scared to take it on because I didn't know the how-tos of it. But I had no problem calling somebody or door knocking on somebody's door. But a year after real estate, I looked, I was in the office, in the Keller Williams office, and I was reflecting back. I'm like, oh, how did this year go? I'm like, not so well. I have a choice. Do I continue going the path of residential real estate, which I didn't really want to do? I wanted to do more real estate investments, but I thought, let me learn from the ground up and let me join a brokerage. And I had a choice. So I continued this path. Do I join a team and maybe just piggyback off of their success? Or do I go into commercial real estate where there's, they don't buy the property because of the color of the carpet. The numbers have to work out. So it's more of a logical approach, which I prefer more. Or do I do something completely different? And at that time I read an article, I think Redfin bought some mom and pop brokerage. And the way Redfin was set up is you pay a flat fee, whatever it was, and you don't pay commission on to the agents, and these agents show the property. I'm like, that's who I'm competing with, people that don't have commission. And so what buyer wouldn't want that? And I said to myself, like, I'm not a above average agent. I'm not like a big Douglas Elliman agent where like I'm competing against Redfin. I'm not even an average agent. I did crap that year. I'm below average. So if I'm competing against Redfin, I'm totally screwed. And so spoke to some friends, people that I trust, and said, listen, you can always get back into commercial real estate, but what do you want to do? And I said, I want to maybe join like a company like Redfin, like a tech company. I have a strong sense that tech is going to just start infiltrating all these like antiquated industries and change things up. And they said, yeah, you can always go back to real estate. Real estate's always going to be here. But tech, maybe if that's the new wave, then maybe get into that. So I said, okay. And then I completely did 360, stopped everything on real estate end, and then joined tech. And then I joined 2 startups. One of them failed. Well, not failed. They failed. They only had $185,000 in funding. They couldn't raise another round after 5 months, so they shut down. The other one had plenty of money, plenty of money, because they were getting that money from the insurance company that the owner owned, and she just created the software company on the side, but no product market fit. Nobody wanted it. So that failed after 3 months. And then the third one I joined is a company still around today called Practice Panther. I think they maybe have rebranded to Paradigm. I was the first employee, 2 founders there. They're doing like $0 in ARR. And in 4.5 years, we grew to 50 plus employees, tens of thousands of customers around the world, millions in ARR. And then they got acquired after 4.5 years. And then I worked at another company as a VP of sales a few times more. And then about almost 3 years coming up in October, November, I started out on my own to do sales coaching, consulting. I have like a online education business for salespeople, like courses and community. And then I have a B2B side where I work with companies, founders, advising them on sales, coaching their team, playbooks, process, all that good stuff. So, who knows where the next 10 years is going to be. We'll see.
Yeah. So you had an extensive background. It's very common that people will go into something and they're really not selling what they're actually passionate about. They're selling something that they fall into. Real estate. People will go into life insurance. They don't really have the passion for it. They'll go into selling widgets. It doesn't make a difference. If you don't have a passion for something, then you're really going to have a hard time to sell. How is it that people are able to find what they actually are passionate about when real estate brokers are so dominant, all these different companies are so dominant chasing people to sell for them? How is it people are able to sell actually what they're passionate about, and where do people first get started to look for that?
Well, I mean, so if they know what they're passionate about, so let's say somebody's passionate about golf, go find a job and they want to do sales, go find a job in sales that's in the golf industry. If they don't know what they're passionate about, then how would they know if they like real estate or insurance? They just have to do it. And they have to go into it and
I think most people don't know. I mean, I knew myself going to college. Who knows what you don't know what you're.
Yeah, nobody really knows. I like the more of the Mark Cuban approach to like follow your passion, which he actually says, don't follow your passion, follow your efforts. So if you do something and then you become good at it, then you end up investing more time in it. And then the more time you invest in it, you become great at it. And then when you become great at something, you end up loving it. It becomes a passion. So Mark Cuban's approach is follow your efforts, not your passion. You have other people that say follow your passion, but it's a lot harder, in my opinion, to follow your passion. I love basketball. I loved basketball growing up. I really wanted to be in the NBA. At some point, I actually believed I was going to be in the NBA. I was a very good player when I was a kid. But
how tall are you?
I'm 5'7". I mean, like,
no NBA for you.
But I was a very good player. I got inspired by Spud Webb, who's 5'7" also. But again, when you're younger, you have a little bit more of a visionary mindset, and there is no obstacle. And I think it's a very actually healthy mindset to have if you're starting a business. Like I was passionate about playing basketball. Could I have been a basketball coach or a basketball trainer? Sure. But my passion was specifically playing basketball competitively. Right. I was passionate about that, but I'm not going to go sell basketball software. Like, that's not so interesting to me. Right. Like, so I chose real estate because that's what people do in Miami. Like, when you don't know what to do, you do real estate. And everywhere I looked, especially in the Jewish community, you ask somebody that's successful, what do you do? Most of the time they say real estate. They probably didn't start off in real estate. They probably made their money somewhere, and then they used that money to invest in real estate. And my uncle's in real estate did really well. He worked at Crescent Heights with multi-million billion-dollar investment firm. But so I thought real estate was the path. Maybe it is the path. I don't know. But
I mean, but when you say real estate encompasses a lot of different aspects of it. I mean, it's not just what you were doing working for Keller, knocking on doors and making cold calls. There's a lot more. Like, it could be commercial, it could be investing. There's a lot more, property management. There's a lot more different aspects of real estate. So you ask somebody real estate, that's like, they talk to us. What do we do? We're financial planning, but really we're talking about life insurance and investments.
Yeah. Well, I definitely didn't want to be a property manager, and none of that attracts me. But when people say real estate, a lot of them probably do some sort of acquisition or development, or at least in Miami. That's what I wanted to do. And I ended up working for a very short period of time for a company that was like a real estate investment firm. It was an institutional investment. It was like, mom and pop kind of built out, very sort of sketchy operation. I don't think they're around today. And they're flipping houses and wholesaling. Horrible culture. Everything was horrible about it. I wasn't ready for it. In hindsight, like with my confidence today and my skills today, if I could go back in time, I'd probably done really well. At that time, I was very timid. I was still scared of sales.
You didn't have the experience yet. You didn't have the success that would encourage you and give you the confidence.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Did you find that these new sales tactics and these new sales strategies that you're coaching and you're training people on, does that work in any industry, or specific sales tactics will work for each specific industry?
No, it'll work for any industry. That's what my plan is eventually, like to, let's say, create content that's less B2B SaaS focused and create content that's more just sales focused. It works in any industry, any industry.
So what's the process that we hear from a lot of different types of salespeople and sales coaches? What's your process? Why is it a little bit different? How can people think about sales in a different way through your method?
Yeah, I mean, so the process the answer to what is the process? Well, that depends on what we're talking about. So if you tell me like, what's the process of handling a lead when it comes inbound, or what's the process of cold calling? That's a totally different process. You can maybe say like, what is your overall like outlook of my sales approach? That's a different maybe question. So maybe I'll break down in a few different ways. My approach to sales in general is me personally. When I am on a call, if I'm evaluating anything like a product, or I go in a store, I'm looking at to lease a car, whatever it is, I always feel like the seller is selling me. Like they're not really there to help me. They're not they're hiding the bad stuff. They're hiding the truth. They're just showing me the good, which is something that I've been taught also in sales. Like I Glenn Ross, always be close. Like I was taught that too. I just don't think that still applies today. Maybe to like antiquated industries, maybe, but even then, like typical car salespeople, like, I can't stand it because I feel like I'm being sold to. They're trying to manipulate. They're trying to be clever and corner you, and I don't like it. So my approach to selling is what I call unselling. So an example of unselling would be, let's just say you guys get a lead for your financial services business. A typical sales approach would say, we have the products right for you. Like, this is perfect timing. Like, right, you're going to tell them what they almost want to hear. And it's almost like, yeah, you're the perfect fit. Unselling says, I actually don't know if I'm a fit. It's too early to know if I'm a fit. So if I were in your business and you get a lead, I would say something like, hey, John or David, let's say you was like a lead from the website. I call you and you're like, yeah, I'm looking for financial planning, blah, blah, blah. Instead of me saying like, yeah, we have exactly what you're looking for, I'll probably say something like, I'm not 100% sure if we have what we're looking for. How do you even know that you even need financial planning? So I'm creating a little bit of a barrier between me and you, because I'm not trying to, ideally I would like for you to close and do business with me, but I'm not trying to sell you. I'm trying to help you. It's a little cheesy cliche, but the reason why it works really well, because I used to, and I sell into this industry, SaaS, software as a subscription. If you understand the SaaS model, you don't buy the product and then see you later. You are technically renting the product or renting the software. So if you're unhappy with it, you cancel. It's month to month, or you pay a yearly plan. A lot of people like to pay month to month for that flexibility. So every month, you better make sure that the expectations that you set on day one is met or exceeded every month. Otherwise, you lose them. They end up leaving. So if you end up closing somebody, let's say you're at least in the software world, if you're doing this, if you're in the middle of a sales presentation and you're like, I can close them, no problem, but they're not a fit for you. Like it's not going to be a good partnership long term. And then you close them, you can close them, but what happens is they'll churn. They'll end up canceling maybe a month or 2 or 3 later, and then that leads to a bad review. That leads to a bunch of other stuff. So it's probably the worst thing. So you want to make sure that you're only closing qualified leads. That requires you to like create some resistance and barrier. So, I mean, I remember I was on when I was a VP of sales at this company, we were selling to attorneys. We're selling them software. And one law firm was trying to haggle with us, and I really couldn't with one of my sales reps. And then he got his partner on the call and trying to haggle. And then I was like, transfer me over to the call, to the phone. And so I ended up talking to this attorney. I said, hey, listen, like, let me just sort of like lift the curtain and tell you what happens. If we close you, if you end up giving us your credit card today, we all get commission. All of us, every single one of us. I get commission, I get awarded, we get a bonus and all that. So we really want to do business with you. But here's on the flip side. If we close you and you're not a fit and we end up like overselling you and you cancel with us, you know what happens to our commission? Our company takes it away. It's called a clawback. They take it away. So, and the other thing is, if we're offering you this particular discount that we can't wiggle beyond, it's in our best interest to give you this discount. And we wouldn't give you this discount if we didn't think we would work for you. We wouldn't give it to you if we didn't think we'd be a fit for you. Because again, if you end up realizing a month later, Mor lied to me, you cancel, leave a bad review, try to get your money back, call American Express. That's just not good business. So it's in my best interest to give you the best deal possible. And I wouldn't do it if I didn't think we'd be a fit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to put, and we say it actually all the time. And we say the first thing we say to clients, like, yeah, we don't really know if you're the right fit for us or we're the right fit for you. Like, we really have to find, and we actually mean that, because you never want to. It's onboarding is very, very intensive. Typically, you're losing money in the first month, 2 months, 3 months of onboarding. But once you actually onboard a client, the key is to have them retain. What is the gym membership concept? It's the same concept as the gym. The gym membership concept is everybody onboards. You pay your salespeople the first month or 2 months or 3 months of their membership, and you're hoping that they just stay after a while. They get used to your service. They stay after a while. They come 1 or 2 times a week, 1 or 2 times a month, and you have them for a long time. The longer, obviously, they stay, the better it is, the more profit there is. The same thing as a lot of these automated concepts, and the gym is like an automated concept. Show up, great. Don't show up, the same thing. It doesn't make a difference on our side. So I
would say, for us, we do a lot of life insurance, so we actually have the same type of approach. If someone, we have to find out what they're looking to do, and what I do it right at the beginning is because and I think a lot of it is because they can go online and find a million different comments, a million different opinions that will tell them a million different things. If I don't come up in the beginning and tell them, this is the downside. This is what this means. This is how it works. This is the bad part of it, because nothing is so great. If I'm trying to hide the ball, like what you're saying, like like if this is a perfect fit for you, then they're just going to go online, Google it, talk to their friends, talk to this, talk to that. And it's the same type of situation. So I want to be upfront. I want to be upfront with them. And so this way and it all works together because I want to find what's the right fit for them. Exactly what you're saying. What is the right life insurance for product for them? Perhaps it's just going to be some term insurance, but they just want some protection. They just want to know that if something were to happen, there would be some money for tax-free money for their benefit. Or maybe they want a savings plan. Maybe they want living benefits. We want to find what that is exactly for that reason. Number one, for the clawback, but also, it's got to be the right thing for the client. So that's the same. It's the same approach.
And I think that's the reason why I think sales is changing, is because 50, 60 years ago, we didn't have the access to like information like we do today. We didn't have review sites. We didn't have Reddit. We didn't have all this crap. Now we do. And so if you lie to a customer, you're like, all right, let me get it back to you. And then they go search and do their due diligence and they find out you were lying.
You're done. You're done.
So I had a client, we were talking about some retirement strategies and annuities for them. And we had this one annuity that we like a lot, that it's like a no fee structured annuity. And they're like, well, is it an income annuity? I go, no, it's not an income annuity. It's an accumulation annuity. It's a newer concept in the annuity space, whatever. All of a sudden, they're like, what is an accumulation annuity on ChatGPT? ChatGPT is like, it's a good way to And it's like, they're literally looking me up and they're like, ChatGPT said what you're doing is good, so we're going to move forward with you. And literally from ChatGPT in real time, they're selling themselves, just checking my information.
Yeah, I mean, you can incorporate that into your next call. So let's just say you have another call in the future where they're asking you what's annuity or whatever you just said. You're like, oh, it's this. Let me tell you a story. Last week I spoke to somebody and they went on ChatGPT. You could tell that story, and
yep.
That's part of sales also. When you just give them answers like it's very tactical, it's not
experience
so,
shares.
Yeah, you want to tell stories. Also, as you were saying that, there's another line. Again, my approach to sales is like unsell, like dissuade them. if let's just say that annuity program, whatever, is the right path for them, regardless of whether they go with you or anyone else, like that's something that they should do. Like that's something you want to say on a call. Like, hey, Yair, like whether you go with us, don't go with me today. Go with another financial planner. My only ask for you is you make sure you get this because you need it based on what you're telling me.
Yeah, we do that a
Right?
lot.
Like,
So I had a client, the husband, we were doing life insurance. The wife wanted life insurance for the husband. The husband had a very serious diabetic problem, had ignored it for a couple of years. And she came back with the underwriting rating was very poor because he wasn't being treated. So I said to her, forget about the insurance. You've got to get him to the doctor. He's got to be looked after health wise. Just, we ended up doing a nice policy, of course, but
of course,
it was beyond that though. It went beyond that because just, you got to, forget about that. You just got to get your husband to the doctor. This is a serious issue.
Yeah. Save lives, Dad.
What?
You're a lifesaver.
What can I say?
Update your business card.
Exactly. Saves lives, pays out death.
Nobody knows what that BFA means. Maybe that's what maybe part of that. That's what it means.
That could be
lifesaver. Maybe that's the slogan.
So now people will think I have candy.
It's true and not kosher. But so more when someone is coming and we see this a lot is somebody's going, well, I'm working for this company. I'm getting my salary. I'm getting comfortable in my salary, but I want to make real money. I want to switch and there's a divide. There's the cost people, the COOs, the admin, the tech people, they're all cost. And then there's the revenue people, the people who are bringing in money into the business. Typically, they're making significantly more money than the people who are cost. And if somebody who's in the cost perspective and wants to switch over to the revenue side of the transaction, how is it that you're coaching them because their mentality is so different? How are you training somebody from nothing, no sales experience, into sales?
Yeah, I mean, so if they want to switch to sales and they're not in sales yet, I don't coach them. Like I the way I've positioned myself is once you're in that position, but you want to level up, then you come to me. So I'm in a different stage in their career life. And again, in the world that I live in currently, B2B SaaS. So the roles are typically you start off as an SDR or BDR, which stands for sales development rep or business development rep. You're essentially like the lowest on the totem pole. You're doing the important work. You're finding the leads, you're qualifying them early on, and then you hand them off to an AE, which is an account executive, which typically does the demonstration, owns the deal, follows up, and closes, and then they pass it on to a CSM, a customer success manager. Anyway, so a lot of times I get SDRs reaching out to me saying like, hey, I need help, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I can help you, but the programs and courses and all that I have is specifically designed for account executives. So when you graduate to an AE role, hit me up. I've come across the idea of like, hey, what if I built out an SDR program? I don't even want to get there because now I'm just like spreading myself thin. So I'll give them free advice. But but there are account executives in my world that are green, they're very junior. Maybe they came from property management. Now they've gotten a job at a startup doing sales. How do I coach them? I mean, same idea. Like it depends on what we're coaching specifically. When I coach somebody else on a sales call, we listen to a recording of a sales call. And I found out during the call they should have asked this, they should have done this. They missed a lot of signals. At the end of that recording, I don't go to the salesperson and say, hey, Yair, great job, but here's what you missed. That's not coaching. That's me sort of crippling you. What I'll do instead is, hey, Yair, we just listened to the first 10 minutes of this. Self-assess. What do you think you did good? Where do you think you screwed up? What would you do differently? What would you have said differently? So I'm getting you to coach yourself first. And then after you coach yourself, then I'll give my opinion. But if I give my opinion first, I'm going to pollute your opinion. So that's how I coach. That's my approach.
It's always better, I find, that they think about it themselves. That's the way you really incorporate it into who you are. You think about yourself, you work on it a little bit, even if there's like, say, 5 points and they only get 2, those 2 will be much more impactful. I mean, we had a salesperson we brought in, and I think we should have talked to you before about this because he came from like not sales into sales, and it was not good.
Yeah, I had this morning. One of my clients, they have a salesperson, and we had a meeting last week, and I told them, hey, I want you to email we made a list of people that we want him to email, CFOs, etc. Or sorry, not CFOs, like CEOs for like e-commerce companies. And part of that sequence is to call them. And so he messaged me this morning. He's like, hey, I have a question. What if as part of the email cadence, I'm calling this lead and the lead says, I'm not interested? Should I continue to send them those emails that is asking for a time to pitch? And I was just like, what do you think? Like, someone tells you I'm not interested. What do you think? To put them on an email cadence to get them to speak to you? You already spoke to them. Take him off. What's wrong with you? Right. Like, it was such a stupid question.
Like a magic, he thinks there's going to be a magic button that he's going to push that all of a sudden they're going to be interested.
I remember when I first got into business, somebody says to me, and Barry Honig, Dad, he says to me, when somebody says no, that's my biggest motivator to turn them into a yes. And I'm thinking, that is terrible advice.
I was taught that also.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous. Yes. Like if somebody says to you no, it's typically no. If you keep pushing them, they're going to get upset. I remember there was a guy that came into my office, a rabbi that came into my office to raise money, and he asked me for money. I gave him $250 because he was driving me crazy. He says, I'm going to put in your credit card for $400.
Oh boy!
So we ran my credit card for $400 without telling me. I canceled the credit. I canceled the charge. Blocked him. Said never come back to my office, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, for us, look at even if I was talking to you about life insurance, and you said to me, "No, I'm not interested." You know, what's going to happen? What's going to change? You know, it has to be. I have to say to you more. You know, you've got kids, you've got a family. You know, we should talk about some insurance, perhaps, maybe some financial planning. What should we do about? What's the next step? You know, let's move. Let's talk about it further. And you say, no, I'm not interested. I have my cousin, my brother, my friend does it already. I'm already looked after, which we hear a million times, of course. That's not really a no. You know, that's sort of like just pushing me off. So I think that's where you have to differentiate between somebody that's just trying to get rid of you and it's not really a no versus a no, which is like, forget it, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I mean, this is like classic objection handling. You know, we're taught to rebuttal objections. That's another concept, by the way, that I was taught, which is my philosophy and how sales is changing and how I approach it. Objection rebuttaling and handling objections. What does that really mean? It's like you try to corner them, try to use logic and like brush their objection under the rug and then make them feel stupid so they can say yes. I don't think that's going to work either. For example, somebody was evaluating one of my coaching programs. Like I have a community. And at the time they were like, you know, we went over everything. We had everything that they wanted. One of the questions I always ask is, what's your ACV? What's your average contract value? And how is your commission structured? So they tell me that their average contract value is $1,000 a year. And they only get paid, 10% on that, and they only close 10 deals a year. Like my coaching program is a lot more than what they would make if they were to close their deals. So that's why I asked those questions, so I can make sense of the numbers. Anyways, we made sense of the numbers where their average contract value is like $30,000 to $50,000 a year, and they get paid a certain commission. Long story short, if they close their deals, they get, they'll close, $5,000 to $10,000 a month in commission. Let's just say. And so at the end of the call, they're like, yeah, I got to think about it. The price is something it's expensive, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, so they're not saying no, they're objecting the price, but what they're really objecting is not the price. What they're objecting is, do they believe that if they pay this, they'll get a return? If there was like a guarantee, like black and white guarantee, they would do it. If it was like a vending machine, you put a quarter, you get a return, they would do it in a heartbeat. But there isn't a guarantee, so they're hesitant. So my approach to that was not saying like, hey, no, this is going to be so valuable because of XYZ. They have already put their guard up. My job, once I hear an objection, is to bring their guard down so I can communicate. When I hear an objection, my brain doesn't think of the word objection. My brain thinks of the word concern. So like, for example, David, when someone comes to you and they're like, I'm pissed off, it's not going to work out. What do you typically do? You'll probably ask them a question.
Ask them. What about it is that you're so pissed off about? Tell me something specific.
So you're not,
because that's something I can deal with. I can address that. But if it's just, oh, you're horrible and I never want to see you again and never call me, that I can't do anything with that.
Exactly. So when we hear a concern, our natural human instinct is to try to understand the concern. How do we understand? Like, what's the mechanism to understand? We ask a question, a follow-up question. What's happening? So that's my approach to handling objections. It's when you hear the objection, you can ask them a follow-up question to better understand the concern. So maybe that could be like something like if they say, "Hey, it's not going to work out for us," and you want to find out why, but if you ask them like, "Why not?" their defenses are up still because they've already made the decision that no is they said no. So how do you get their defenses down so you can communicate the concern? So that could be something like, "Hey, David, totally here. Do you mind if I ask you a follow-up question?" Like now I'm asking permission to ask my question. So because I'm asking permission, I respect your opinion. I respect your time. Naturally, you'll say.
Sometimes I'll say, I understand, that's fine, but help me understand it for my next client so that I can learn from what I did wrong here. Not that I did wrong, but something that I can learn
what
from
I
this,
could improve.
how I can improve. Right.
Yeah.
Help me how you.
I used to do that. I stopped doing that because in my head, it's like, I don't owe you anything. Like, I remember a client once, I was the buyer, the seller was asking me, like, what can I do to improve? I was from my next client. I'm like, I don't really care about your, in my head, I'm like, I don't care about your next client. Like,
exactly.
Shoo off. So I like to ask permission. Can I ask you a follow-up question? And then, and then they say, once I say, if you ask this, they will always say yes. 80, 90% of the time they will say yes.
Because they feel bad that they're telling you no, so they don't mind helping you out with a small thing.
Yeah, it's like a small little favor. Or you can even ask, can I ask you for a small little favor? And like, again, you're asking permission. By asking permission, you respect somebody. Another approach would be like, so let's just say they came to me with that objection. Oh, it's too expensive, blah, blah, blah. I got to think about it. So my follow-up question to them was, hey, Yair, do you mind if I share with you? Can I share with you just a little bit of a different perspective? And naturally, they'll say yes because they're just curious. What's the different perspective? And I told them, don't go with my solution. Right now, I'm telling you right now, do not go with my program. All right, but I want you to view this coaching investment that you plan on making for yourself. Again, don't go with my program, but I want you to view it. You said your ACV is X. You said your commission is this. You said right now you're not closing, blah, 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 blah. If you find a program that can even help you by 10%, you're now going to take home commission by X dollars, which pays for itself. Again, don't go with my program, but my only
you're showing the value of coaching in general.
Any decision.
Yeah, not my program, just coaching in general, yeah.
And now you're taking your subjectivity out of the equation.
I'm telling you, don't go with me. Don't go with me. I don't care. Don't go with me. A seller won't naturally. When I was trained in sales, or I was taught sales, or whatever it was, you never want to plant that seed in their brain. No, sales is changing. You do want to plant that seed in their. It's not a seed to be planted. They're going to think about that anyways. For them, they don't want to be sold. They want to be helped because they know you sell this program. So naturally, they're going to be like, of course, he's telling me this. So how do I take that thought out of their brain? I'm going to tell them, don't go with my program. Go with this person or that person. But I want you to think about it like that. Naturally, they're going to be like, whoa, he just completely threw himself under the bus. He just educated me. He taught me something. All right, I trust him. I actually want to go with him. It has this crazy reverse effect.
Yeah, it's great. It's actually amazing. That's an amazing piece.
No, we'll say the same thing. You have kids, or you need protection, you need some insurance, you need some investment advice. Don't go with me, but look into this. This is what you're looking for. You need some protection, like somebody with kids, no life insurance, which is more common than you think. Just you need some protection now. The way things, especially the way the world is now, you need something. Just look after it one way or another.
Next time you get any sort of objection like that, whatever you do today, test it out for all the next 3 months. I don't know how many leads you guys get a month, but test it out for the next 3 months or so. And next time you get the objection, whatever it is, say, totally hear that. Do you mind if I share with you a different perspective? Just say that one line.
I'm going to even write it down.
It'll change everything.
Mor, how does a company build a resilient sales force? That obviously sales, when somebody's in sales and they're generating and they're doing business and they're growing and growing and growing, it's great. But you need sales to be consistent over time. So how do you train and how do you coach your companies to have a resilient sales team?
Well, resilient mentally, or resilient how?
Consistent sales. Yeah,
so consistent sales is tough because sometimes seasonality could affect it. Sometimes just the economy could affect it. A lot of companies, let's say, rely on inbound leads. And so when that starts to dip, sales isn't consistent. And so the way I teach them, like, well, you need a prospect. So we need to build out the outbound machine for your team. So then we'll work on building an outbound machine. So that's one part. But then sometimes sales are dipping because they're just not doing a good job in the initial interaction with a prospect. They're not doing a good job on the demo. They're not doing a good job on the follow up. It's just like very flat, very like no value add. Every follow up email is like, hey, just are you still interested in doing this? It's always about the product. I'll give you an example. If you're selling to somebody that potentially big deal that they're evaluating life insurance, whatever it is, and they're like, hey, not right now, whatever. Actually, it's not a dead deal, but it's not right now. It's maybe later on. Typical salespeople would follow up with that person and be like, hey, what about now? Have you thought about now? Like, they're just constantly like, what about now? What about now? Are we there yet? It's very annoying. So how do you change that? What I would do is, well, I know enough about the customer. I know that they're, let's say, 30 years old or 40 years old. They just had their second child, whatever it was. And I know they have a single family home. And I know, based through our conversation, there may be concern about damages to the house, termites. Through the conversation I have with the prospect, I'm learning about them as a person. I'm learning about them as like what they care about. And so my follow doesn't have to just be about insurance. It could just be something about like the home. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, your lead, the person you spoke to, just got a new house, and their goal is to build a tree house in the back of the house, and they just came up in conversation. All right, cool. And you want to follow up. Maybe you found an article on how to build a treehouse. How maybe IKEA released a few things and an article how to build a treehouse. That could be a follow-up email. Hey, David, I remember we spoke. You wanted to build a treehouse for your kids. By the way, IKEA just came out with like a new article about how to build a treehouse. Thought this would be helpful. That's it. I'm not pitching myself. I'm just top of mind. That's all.
What I do? What I do a lot? I have a broadcast message, and sometimes I'll do it more personalized depending on the person. I just send like happy holiday for whatever holiday, like a personalized message, something nice. And all of a sudden it always brings out like one or two new deals or just people that I put on the list that are like in my prospecting. So whenever there's a holiday like Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur or Passover or something like that, I send out like one to wish you a happy Passover. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, thank you so much. You know what? I was actually thinking about you and da, 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 da. And it always leads to something instead of just like, hey, when are we ready to close this? Like it's a ridiculous thing. It's very interesting.
Be omnipresent.
Correct.
If you can be in their world, their ecosystem, and you're always on their mind, or majority of the time, or wherever, if every time they land on LinkedIn or whatever it is, they think of you, or every time they think. And I was taught this in real estate at Keller Williams. I remember we used to go door knocking, and I was like to my mentor, I'm like, why the hell would anyone want to sell me or buy a home for me when I knocked on the door? Like, what's the I don't get it. It's too much of an ask from door knocking. It's like, it's not that. The idea is, when you're door knocking, you don't want to just door knock and say hello. You want to door knock, say hello, and then maybe give them like a pamphlet of like, homes that recent home sales in the area, whatever it was. And then if you do this consistently, when they hear the word real estate, they think of the word real estate, they'll think of you. Your name becomes synonymous with real estate.
Exactly.
Like looking back, if I were in that world of real estate and I had to do it again and I had to door knock, I probably wouldn't send a pamphlet of like recent home sales. I probably send like pamphlet of like how to like clean your grass, or how to something that isn't directly related to real estate, like how to improve your home value, for example.
To pique their interest, exactly what we were talking about before the podcast in terms of the titles and just to get people to be interested in what you're offering, something different. I had a case also. He was a veteran. He was in the Army. They were looking for a mortgage. There's something you can get through the VA that gives them a cheaper mortgage. I had an article came across. I emailed it over to them. I said, because I think they realized, oh, you're thinking about me. You're thinking about me specifically, not just as a generic, one of 1,000, but you actually have me in mind. And that develops a relationship, and that's what it's all about, really, for us at least.
I'll give you an example. Like, I have a friend that he's obsessed with Dune, the new movie Dune that came out. I don't feel like Dune, whatever. I like it.
Yeah.
We like it.
Now they came out.
Dune 2.
They came out with Dune. They're coming out with Dune the show on HBO or something. And I saw that, like, whoa, he's going to go crazy. So I texted him like, hey, by the way, did you see this? So that's me to a friend. What's different between that to a prospect? Nothing. But it doesn't happen because we put on our sales hat when we're dealing with a prospect, because we're like, we want the money. It's the same thing. And that's why on LinkedIn, if you see my LinkedIn, like I post consistently on LinkedIn and I'm sharing value. I'm never pitching my services on LinkedIn. Like, hey, here's a link to sign up to my course. I never do it. It's, hey, here's something that I've learned. Here's a resource for free that you can learn. Once they download that, they're put on a sequence that gives them more advice and more advice and more advice. And at the bottom of my email, there's a little PS that says, hey, whenever you're ready, here are 3 ways I can help you. Boom, boom, boom. Whenever they're ready, they'll click it. It's very not in your face. The only time I'm in your face is if I'm running a promotion or I have a new course and I'm pushing that. Otherwise, when you're going through sort of like my little funnel, I'm not pushing my product right away. It's sort of subliminally embedded.
Yeah, we should put that in our signature. Whenever you're ready, we'd love to talk to you about that.
No, whenever you're ready, there are 3 ways we can help. Boom, boom.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Mor, tell us a moment in your life that allowed you to be so resilient, because sales is not easy and cold calling all day long is not easy. Did you have a defining moment in your life that allowed you to consistently be resilient to overcome these obstacles and challenges?
For sales?
For life.
For life. I don't think there was one moment. I can probably like think of a moment where I was like the underdog, and maybe that helped, maybe, or maybe it's just like a nurture thing. When I was in high school, I think I was on the basketball team, but I was an alternate. They don't get playing time. They're just, if somebody breaks their leg and they have nobody else, they call you up. And I was a very crappy player, horrible. But there was one day I remember during practice where the team, the coach had the team do like a little practice run, a drill, and then it was my turn. And whenever it was my turn, he kept switching to the next drill. He didn't care. Like, he didn't care if it was my turn to go run suicides. Anyways, there's one drill that he ran, and like I noticed it. Like, I just kept noticing that that's what he's doing. And then it was my turn, and I noticed like he just didn't even he walked away. We went to another drill, and I just stood there on the line like ready to do a suicide. And his son, who's on the team, was like, "Dad, Mor didn't go yet." He's like, "Oh yeah, Mor, go." And he stood there for a second, and I started running, and he walked away. He didn't care. I just felt like crushed. I was like, wow, I felt like nothing. And so I told myself, and I remember I'd go on like the games and the buses, and then my buddies were on the team. They're in the starting 5. They would talk about next year's teams. Like, oh, next year, Josh, you're going to start. You're going to start. I'm like, how do you know I'm not going to start? And they're like, more, relax. Like, don't kid yourself. I was like, how do you know? Like, maybe I can be very good next year. Like, no, you can't. So like that happened, during that season, really hurt me. And then something switched in my brain. I said, next year, I'm coming back, like Michael Jordan style, taking over, captain of the team. And something, I was 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. Usually 14 to 15-year-olds don't have discipline. Something switched my brain. It was an embarrassment. Maybe something struck a chord. During that summer, I bought a basketball. Every night, I would literally sleep in I would not leave the basketball, even on Shabbat. I would not leave the basketball. I would wake up at 5 a.m., have quick breakfast, go to the park. It was like an hour. It was about a mile away. I would just jog to the park. I would play until 2 p.m., come quickly home to eat lunch, go back to the park till 11 p.m. My brother will tell you the story. Roy will tell you, because he used to take me to the park and just free throws. And whatever money I did have left, I ended up finding a really good player at the park. I'm like, I'll pay you to train me. And he ended up being a former ABA player. Anyways, I did this for months. Hurricane season, I was in the park. My brother will tell you everything. He'll tell you the commitment. I
believe you. I don't need to validate your story or verify it. I believe it.
Yeah, but it helps when you have validation. I came back. The summer ended. I was playing hours, like 10,000 hours, knocked it out of the park. No pun intended. Came back, season started, and it was practice, tryouts, and crushed it. Like, people were like, what the hell? Like, where did this come from? Ended up making starting 5 and becoming one of the captains on the team that year. And like that. And for me, the next year I wanted to be on varsity. I ended up doing the same thing. Next year, I got most improved player. I got an award for it, whatever. For me, that was like,
you realize you can make it. You can realize you can go from 0 to something.
But it wasn't that. It was, I remember one of my buddies who was also an alternate at the time. He didn't care about basketball as much as I did. I became obsessed with it. we were in practice. He's like, "What do you think you'd be better than? You think you're Michael Jordan?" I'm like, "I'm better than Michael Jordan." I actually believed, like, thinking back, I actually believed I was going to be better than Michael Jordan. I was so confident because of the delta that there was and how much I like leapfrogged into my new skills.
Yeah, you thought that you could leapfrog again and beat Michael Jordan.
It was you don't understand. Like, I was like the shittiest player in the world. Like, even if you had no arms, you could have beat me. I was bad. And then I became phenomenal. I was playing with Rajah Bell, who was on the Suns at the time. He would play at this park that I used to go practice. I'd play with Rajah Bell in the park. I'd be able to compete. Andre Rison, a football player, who's also a very good player. I'd play with him. I'd play with and1 players in the park. I was one of the best players in the park. And these guys, I'm 5'7". At the time, I was like 5'5". These guys are 6 foot, athletic.
No, you played. You
were determined. You made up your mind it was going to happen.
The Jewish determination.
So I always think about that as the, that even you talk to like Patrick Ben David or Bet David, not Ben David, Bet David and like Grant Cardone and like Gary Vaynerchuk. They all, like, if you tell them like the secret, you have to have a very you have to be very strong willed. You have to make a very you have to make a decision. I'm doing this, and you have to take massive action. I know Grant Cardone talks about massive action. Yeah. Those 3 things, it's exactly what I did with basketball. And it stuck. And so there are certain things in my life that I realized if I wasn't able to make a decision to commit and take massive action, it's probably because I didn't care too much about the thing that I was pursuing.
I love that. And it's such a take home for life. Mor, how can people find you? How can people get connected to you, join your sales program?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're in software sales, then you can go to demotoclose.com or just check me out on LinkedIn. If you're not in software sales and you want sales coaching, well, that's an area that I haven't built any programs for, but you can just check my LinkedIn out.
He's not sure he's the right fit for you.
I'm not sure if I'm the right fit.
We'll see.
May not be the right
We'll see if you qualify to access our program.
Not for everybody.
But Mor, thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much for sharing some insight today. We really appreciate you coming on. Love you as being part of my very, very extended, non-related family. It's, he's married to my wife's first cousin brother. That's also, but you're also related to the Gramazians now. So thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, somehow.
We really appreciate it. And love seeing your success, love seeing your resiliency, and love seeing what you're doing and you're helping people and you're changing people's lives. And we love people like that. So thank you so much for coming on. And we'll see you everybody on the next one.